The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. After securing majority of the votes, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said that forming his economic team is a priority. But for Susan Ople, who was asked to be Migrant Workers Secretary, making the decision takes time. Marlene Alcaide with the story.
Record high debt and hot inflation. These are just some of the headaches that the next administration will inherit. That's why all eyes will be on who will make up presumptive President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s economic team.
Humina yung ekonomiya nung may lockdowns, lalo na 2020, 2021. So, nabawasan yung tax collection ng gobyerno. At the same time, yung gastusin niya lumaki dahil nga doon sa mga ayuda, sa mga financial assistance, sa mga various COVID programs like healthcare, yung mga vaccine, booster doses, sa healthcare system, yung pagpapalakas ng ating mga hospital, and so on. Pati iba pang assistance programs na yung intervention na kailangan gawin ng gobyerno. Pati, siyempre, isa doon yung pag-increase ng infrastructure spending.
After he got majority of votes in the May 9 polls, Marcos Jr. acknowledged right away that coming up with an economic team will be a priority.
The economic managers are going to be critical for the next several years because of the pandemic and the economic crisis. So that is something that we are looking at very carefully.
But until now, Marcos Jr.'s transition team has yet to name a single member of the team.
Imagine mo, ang gagaling nito, they're doing so well in the private sector, hindi naman sila sanay na under microscope. So these are all the challenges that we are facing as we continue with our search and as we continue with the vetting process.
Some experts and members of the private sector are suggesting that the current economic team be retained.
While we respect the many good people that are serving in the present administration, I think we'll just give him enough space to define his government and to have his own governance.
Marcos is currently in Australia to enjoy some private time with his family prior to taking on his next role. Before leaving, he asked Susan Ople to be the secretary for migrant workers. But the OFW advocate is still reflecting on the offer.
Hindi lang OFWs yung gusto niya na ma-serve ng department, kundi mag-develop din ng mga programa para sa mga pamilya, lalo na yung mga anak ng OFWs na naiiwan dito, na kailangan din ng gabay, kailangan din ng yung suporta, yun. So, yun naman yung sinabi niya.
Ople has been consulting family members, advisors, and stakeholders to seek clarity. For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
And the camp of presumptive president or presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte Carpio says that they will await the official proclamation before planning her early inauguration, which has been tentatively set for June 19. Recall that Duterte Carpio is looking to be inaugurated earlier than the traditional June 30 schedule so that she can do it in Davao City. Speaking to 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang, her spokesperson, Cristina FRASCO, said they will likewise wait until after the proclamation to start the transition process with the office of the Vice President. But for now, FRASCO says that Duterte Carpio is planning to be an active and visible Vice President. However, the spokesperson admits that they are still not sure where Duterte Carpio will reside once she assumes the position.
She does intend to be a very active, hardworking, and visible Vice President. And therefore, sinabi na po niya na in coordination with the many parallel groups na nagbigay ng kanilang tulong at resources throughout the campaign, for which she's very grateful, mag-establish nga po ng mga satellite offices all over the Philippines so that ma-centralize po natin yung services at mas madaming matutulungan sa iba't ibang sulok ng Pilipinas.
And the camp of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos welcomes the petition to review the COMELEC's ruling on Marcos Jr.'s candidacy. Marcos Jr. spokesperson Vic Rodriguez says it is understandable that the petitioners want to exhaust all legal remedies that are available to them. However, he also said that they are confident that the Supreme Court will come to the same conclusion that Marcos Jr. is qualified for the presidency. Meanwhile, the petitioner's counsel, Ted Tess, says he is cautiously optimistic about their chances with the Supreme Court.
Yung Supreme Court kasi ibang bagay yun eh, no? So the Supreme Court will review the COMELEC, no? And usually kasi yung Supreme Court pag COMELEC medyo mas masusi sila doon eh, kasi siyempre eleksyon ang pinag-uusapan, no? So they're a bit more strict siguro, if I may call it that, no? So let's just say I'm cautiously optimistic. Let's just put it that way.
And the Philippines made history on May 9 after hitting 83% voter turnout for the national and local elections. In a tweet, COMELEC Director James Jimenez said this is the highest turnout for automated elections in the country. Meanwhile, the PPCRV has received over 78,000 physical copies of election returns. Out of this number, nearly 60,000 have already been encoded and validated at 98.88% matching rate. There are 327 ERs that need to undergo revalidation. The PPCRV also admits that they had difficulties in obtaining ERs from some polling precincts. And that's because some members of the Electoral Board claimed that they were unaware that the fourth copy of election returns is allocated to the council.
Pagkalap po namin ng mga election returns, ang hirap pong kumuha. We had a hard time getting it from the members of the Electoral Board sa mga presinto.
Ano pong nangyayari?
Hindi binibigay ko sa mga PPCRB volunteers namin, claiming na we're not supposed to get a copy from the pre-transmission copies. Siguro yun po yung kulang. Masasabi ko yung orientation din sa mga members of the Electoral Board. Kasi sa amin din, we are also doing our part to orient also our volunteers. At malinaw yun sa kanila.
We'll be back with more stories after this quick break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. Batanes is finally reopening for tourists who are fully vaccinated, albeit gradually. The provincial government said a maximum of 50 tourists will be allowed inside the island group during the trial period or until June 30. Visitors are also not allowed to plan their own tours. They are required to book tour operators and accommodations that are accredited by the Tourism Department. Tourists are also required to bring their vaccination cards, S-passes, and certificates of acceptance. According to the guidelines, all tourism workers in Batanes should be fully vaccinated. Let's take a quick look at some of today's headlines. While supermajority unfolds over at the lower house, the Makabayan bloc remains undecided on whether to join or stay independent. Incumbent Senator Coco Pimentel reveals that he's considering joining the Senate's minority bloc. And a recent survey shows 2 in 5 Filipino families consider themselves poor. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us again at 11 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Sean Yao. Masks on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.